Going live. Welcome along. Hello. You're probably watching this recorded. Thanks for tuning in. It's great to have you. Any second now, we're going to have people pop in live. Welcome to them too. Hey, it's Tuesday evening. Welcome along. So good to have you join us now or later, anytime you're watching this. I noticed I've got to remember to put a bunch of these up on YouTube, but the first one on Kids in Crisis, I think it was either 30 or maybe even 60 views. So imagine people going, Crisis, no, that's not what I want, and flicking to someone else. But I'll imagine that they watch the whole thing and I'll feel really good about myself. So welcome along. Tuesday evening. I'm Richard Moores, Children's Youth and Families Pastor for Southside Uniting Church. We meet on the land that the Yagara and the Turrbal people have cared for, or the Jagara. Seems there's multiple ways of saying it. So we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We pray for reconciliation between all peoples, particularly between people and God. So welcome along. Great to have you join us. We've been exploring the book that I'm reading at the moment. And I'm managing to keep ahead of you, so that's really good. Maybe that's why I waffle on too much about each chapter, so I've got time to read the others. But no, so I'm about halfway through, maybe a bit more, because there's a whole heap of appendices at the back. Gotta love when there's appendices and you go, oh, from there on, I don't need to read. So, oh, it's looking good. I think, oh yeah. Probably got 60 pages to go, 70 pages. Cool. Sorry, distracted. Focus, Richard. So I've been working through helping teenagers in crisis, Youth Workers Guide to doing that. So we'll explore a bit more about that. Just to catch you up where we've been, we've talked about trying to understand a bit about what crisis is. That crisis hits us. There's varying scales of crisis, but to each person, the crisis that they're in is important, even if we go, that's nothing. So we shouldn't go, oh, that's nothing. That it changes our thinking, but that crisis gives us an opportunity. Last week we talked about that when we face people with crisis, we need to triage and think, what do I deal with? What don't I deal with? How do I listen to them? How do I hear their story? How do I get to the nuts and bolts so I work out what I have to do with this? Whether I need to pass it on, whether I need to sit here and deal with it. So we can continue on. But movie quote. So I can't remember whether I've used this quote before. I don't think I have. Rosebud. There you go. What movie does that come from? Rosebud. If you know the movie, if not, you might know it, not have seen the movie. I don't know. I definitely heard that it comes from that movie, but I don't know whether I could have quoted it before. Anyway, getting sidetracked. Focus. So today, if you've looked at the title, we're looking at making connections. So, Robert Veninga, in his book, A Gift of Hope, How We Survive Our Tragedies, identifies the characteristics shared by survivors. And perhaps his most instructive observation, for our context at least, is, almost without exception, those who survive a tragedy give credit to one person who stood by them, supported them, and gave them a sense of hope. So that one person who was with them. You know, we don't need a billion people in that crisis. We just need that one person that says, I'm going to stand by you. Can't remember if I told the story about a young person that I was chatting with online, and they became suicidal to the point where they were sitting on a bridge getting ready to jump off. And for some reason, we made a deal prior to this that if they were ever going to do it, I'll come back to you, Rod. If they were ever going to do it, they had to call me, and they suddenly called me. And they didn't end up killing themselves, and it was that sense of, they heard that there actually was someone that cared. There was that one person. So I can tell you it's true. That one person can make a difference. Now, Rod has said that the movie is The Rose and for Buds. Might have that, but that's not what I'm thinking of. That's not what's on my card. If I was watching have you been paying attention? It's not what's on the card. So what movie's Rosebud? Just Rosebud. We'll see. Anyway, so who we are is more important than what we know. So one of the keys is if it's all about that one person who is there to support, it doesn't have to be about I'm the person that's there because I know everything. But I can just be the person who's there. I'm the person who cares, so I'm the right person. So they give the anatomy of a helper. So our anatomy class for today. Never thought you'd be doing anatomy with me, did you? Anatomy for today. You'll notice that I get well, depending on who you are, Oliver might not agree, but I think I do. I get a tick for the first characteristic because the first characteristic is humour. So it's important to, sometimes in those heavy moments, to have some appropriate humour that lightens the moment. I love the story that they tell. So I'll read this for you. Ready? The staging area was prepared for the graveside service of a young Marine killed in combat during training exercises. An open-sided tent covered the area with a dozen or so folding chairs for the immediate family. The family arrived and Grandma, an unfortunately large woman, was seated front and centre. Towards the end of the service, the chaplain signalled the honour guard to begin the customary 21-gun salute. Grandma was so startled by the sound of the first volley of gunshots that she literally lifted off her seat. The chair, it should be noted, was not engineered for her particular combination of mass and velocity. So when Grandma came crashing back down, it collapsed beneath her, pitching her onto the ground. Horrified, her 6-year-old grandson screamed, "My God, they've shot Grandma!" There wasn't a dry eye in the place, and for the first time in days it wasn't from tears of sorrow. Even Grandma laughed uncontrollably. Sometimes in those moments we need that little bit of humour that just breaks and goes, oh, we can breathe. We can take a moment. We've been all this stress and tension and sadness and Grandma's fallen on her butt. That's hilarious. No, Grandma's not dead. You might think of the mother and son episode where they're going to the funeral and Ruth Cracknell's character, Maggie, tells them to stop and she goes and buys this bag of grapes and then the funeral sort of towards the end and people are throwing dirt in, so she leans to throw dirt and the oranges start falling into the grave. Those sorts of things. So you're not trying to make fun of the situation. You're going, this is funny, you've got hurt like that. But being able to look around and go, oh, how can I just lighten this? Proverbs 17:22 says, "A cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up bones." So just try and have a little bit of humour. So I think I get a tick. You can have a discussion whether I win that humour thing or not, but I think I do. So humour. Number 2, empathy. So they say a sign on a camp nurse's office wall reads, "Empathy is feeling your pain with my heart." So how do we have that empathy, that caring? Interestingly, I was talking to one of the brigade's parents on Friday night, and they were just wanted to chat with me because they've just started working for white ladies' funerals. And she's like, well, how do you cope? Because they said, they have that empathy. They have that when they see someone crying, they cry, and they're not meant to do that. And how do you deal with that? I wanted to say I'm just an uncaring bugger that doesn't feel emotions, but I didn't. But it's that sense of how do we show that empathy? How do we show we really care about that person? And so Anne Kaiser Stearns, in Living Through Personal Crisis, observes that the empathetic person does not shock easily, but accepts human feelings as human feelings. So, how are you feeling? I'm not going to go, why do you feel like that? But just share what you're feeling. Share that with me. Is not embarrassed by tears. So I'm not going to get worried that you're crying. I'm not going to maybe worry that I cry. That's all right. I'm feeling for you. That's allowable. Does not give unwanted advice. Particularly the males in the room. We hear a problem and we're trying to work out what's the advice, how do we solve this problem? The empathetic person doesn't go there. They go, what's this situation? If you're looking for advice, if you ask for advice, I might give it, but I'm hearing your story. What are you telling me? Is warm and appropriately affectionate. So you feel that they're empathetic, they're being warm to you, they're accepting you there. Reminds you of your strengths when you forget you have these strengths within yourself. So, hey, no, you're good at this. Recognizes that growth is a process. So they're not, the empathetic person isn't going, well, get over it, hurry up. But, how do we walk along this journey, start to grow? Trust that you are able to come through your difficult time. So I'm with you. We're going to get through this. It might be long. It might take time. Treats you like an adult, capable of making good decisions. So the empathetic person is going, oh, here we go, darling. Little boy, how do we fix this up for you? Do you want a kiss on the little boo-boo? You're an adult. Even the young person, going to treat you like an adult. How do we work through this crisis? Acknowledges that he is human too and shares this humanness. So the empathetic person comes along, I'm a human being. I mess up. And we'll work through this together. I'm not coming as this superhuman person that, let me solve your problem for you. They may sometimes become impatient or angry, but never attacks your character when telling you so. So I might be frustrated that this has happened. I might be angry, but I'm not going to have a go at you. You're a bad person for doing that or letting that happen or keeping doing. No. I'm frustrated that this keeps happening. Why does it? Is not afraid to question you directly about your feelings of loss. It's the empathetic person and trying to draw out what, and I'm not scared to go, how do you feel? How does that make you feel? Are you scared? Do you want to just give up? I'm willing to ask those deep questions that get into the deep feelings of who the person is. Respects your courage and sense of determination. Wow, thank you for telling me. I'm so glad you trust me enough that you're sharing this crisis with me. Understands that grief is not a disease. It's a terrible thing that you can necessarily I'll just get over it. I'm not going to catch your grief or whatever. Has been through troubled times and can tell you this without making everything seem about her. So the empathetic person, I've been through something similar. Tell me about what happened to you. I've been something. Let me tell you the story. And you're sitting there going, I thought we were talking about me, but now you're, well, okay, then fine. Do that, you'll probably, the young person will walk away and won't come back to you. They may not be comfortable with the feeling you are expressing, such as hatred or a particular sexual yearning, but tries to understand what the feeling means to you. So, you're being, maybe like we were talking last time, you're being abused and you're still feeling love for this person. And as the helper, you might be thinking, I don't get that. I don't understand how you can care for this, love this person who treats you so badly. But help me to understand that. Help me to understand what those feelings of love are and why you still have those. Tells you honestly when he is unable to be with you because of problems or needs of his own. So the empathetic person goes, I really see you need me. I'm busy at the moment. Let's work out a time when we can meet. Now, you have to be honest about, sometimes I can't give you this time at the moment. I have to be somewhere else, but I'll be honest and tell you that. They remain faithful to commitments and promises. So it's a whole bunch of stuff that the empathetic person does is you're trying to walk alongside them as you're trying to have their pain in your heart You're doing these things. You're hearing their grief. You're hearing their deep story. You're accepting their feelings and trying to understand what those feelings are, even if you're not feeling those feelings. There were too many feelings in that last sentence. So humour, empathy, availability. So you hear of a problem, you go and connect. Probably not my forte. So I've still got the humour. Don't know about the availability. But how are you making yourself available for that young person? How do you invite them? Let's go and hang out. Let's just talk. Emotional focus. So we can be physically present, but sometimes we're not emotionally present. You know, we're busy doing something. I'm here for you. I'm sitting here doing something. Talk when you feel free. Yeah, if you want to share something, just let me know. If we're going to be good helpers, we need to be emotionally present as well as physically present. You know, I'm here for you. And when you're ready, you can share. And just, when you're ready, take your time. That's emotionally, physically present. So we need an emotional focus. I note that Mike Iaconelli, father of Mark Iaconelli, who I love to quote, says that the spiritual gift of teenagers is a crap detection. So they'll know when you're not really connecting with them. They'll know when you're being inauthentic. They'll go, no, not going to bother talking to them. So we need to be emotionally focused. I'm here. I'm really listening. Approachability. So we don't need to just be accessible and there. We need to be approachable. So we could be available all we want, but if we're not approachable, young people aren't going to come and talk to us. Youth workers who are approachable value the importance of each person and communicate these feelings through their words and actions. So I'm approachable. You can tell that I'm showing that I care about you and I care about others. Probably not slagging off others to you. Through all my interactions with you in the youth group, you know that I value people. That never willingly embarrass anyone in front of others. So, that challenge that we've discovered in youth ministry, that all those fun things where we embarrassed people, that really wasn't helpful, really wasn't good. And so we changed that. And so we don't embarrass anyone, Someone tells me a story, I'm not going to go and tell, hey, everybody, look, Johnny is struggling with this issue. Isn't it hilarious that someone would struggle with that? No. Because that sense of, if you're willing to embarrass someone else, how do I know if I share my struggle with you, you're not going to embarrass me? So if we're approachable, we're not going to be embarrassing other people. They avoid telling or even listening to ethnic, racial, or gender jokes. So the things we say and the things we sit and listen to. If we just sit there while someone's telling a racist joke and don't do anything and don't walk away, we're saying, well, we find that acceptable. So we need to think about not just what we say, but what do we allow around us. They never challenge a young person's sexual identity and always challenge those who do. So it's not about going, oh, you think you're this? Oh, that's terrible. But no. We were interestingly having a discussion about gender identity a couple of weeks ago at youth group, and one person was saying, they struggle with this, people identifying as a gender other than the gender that they were born in. And I think partly the struggle of understanding what that is, but also that sense of, in some circles, it seems to be very popular. It's almost, how can I get attention? I can say I'm trying to transition. And how much of that is true and how much of that is now just the trend. And I'm not going to go anywhere near that discussion. But that, and one of the other people talking about, that's terrible. You should say that. I have people, friends, and I'm in the group of people who are like that, and that's terrible. And So we were trying to have that discussion about, this is about expressing feelings. And for people on this side, they can't say people who believe that is terrible. People on this side can't say that people who believe that are terrible. So we need to be open to each other and go, okay, you're in a different place to where I am. I hear that. And the person who said they don't get the gender transition stuff said, but if they saw someone being bullied for that, they would step in and stop that. I'll stand up. I don't get it. I don't think it's right, but I'm not going to abuse that. So, yeah, that sense of how do we, I think we got to a good place in the conversation where it's like, okay, we're not saying, and we definitely would never accept where someone said, oh, this person's transitioning, that's wrong. But we can have that discussion. I hope we ended up in a good place. Next, avoid competitive activities that exclude people who lack physical prowess. So it's important that sometimes we have all these things that, oh, look, that person who can run the fastest has won everything again. Isn't that great? Whoop-de-doop-de-doo. So our Fun in the Sunday Mini Olympics will have pretty much nothing to do with physical prowess. We'll do silly things that will be fun and exciting and hopefully lots of laughs and giggles. So, yeah, we don't want to build up the same stereotypes. People who are approachable can be trusted to keep a confidence. So, of course, going back to that sense of, we don't want people to humiliate us. We want to know that they can keep what we're sharing to themselves. Unless, of course, SMC training stuff, unless they need to report that on. And then we know that they do. We know that they treat the material we give them in the appropriate way so that I will be helped or the person coming will be helped. So that's important. We need to be approachable. So humour. I've already forgotten the second one, aren't I? That's because I don't do it. There we go. Humour, empathy, availability, approachability, and resourcefulness. So they say people in a crisis can feel like passengers on a runaway train careening through a moonless night. They hold on for dear life as the train picks up speed in a terrifying dark. Every bump and curve reminds them of how utterly and totally out of control they feel, up to a point. Past that point, the passengers expect to die. So they ride grimly, wishing it could be sooner rather than later. In a good action-adventure movie, this is where the hero shows up, godlike from the outside, bringing new hope. Hold on, he says, I'll help you get off this thing alive. This is what people want us to be. And since we're not in the grip of the crisis, we bring clearer perspective and greater capacity to identify solutions than those caught in the middle of it. So we come with some ideas. Not we come to give you the answer and tell you, oh, well, what you need to do is, but we come with ideas that we can go, oh, have you thought about what you could do? What can you do? You're stuck in this situation where you're being bullied. What could you do? Are there people that you could talk to about that at school? How do you get along with your teachers? You're coming and you're helping them to think through. You're giving them, so you've just given them the idea that they should talk to someone about it and they should talk to a teacher about it. But you're asking questions where it's them coming up with, oh yeah, I could do that. And I could talk to this person. That's great. So you come with that perspective. It's that perspective that Lynn brings to Southside, that she comes from outside and can come in and go, okay, what's going on? I can talk to all these people, do a survey, I can get the lie of the land, and then I can go, okay, here's where you actually are. You think you're here. You're here. And how do we move on from here? Where's the next step? And then training. I'm sorry, I'm just reading. I'll read this box because I think it might be important. So Rich Van Pelt says, a youth worker I was helping through a rough spot said, gosh, having done this for as long as you have, there's probably nothing you haven't dealt with. I chuckled and responded that just when I think I've heard everything, something new surfaces. But my friend wasn't far off. My experience helping students and families in crisis makes me unusually resourceful. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I haven't become less effective with time. despite the wags who remind me the first word in youth work is, well, you can read it yourself, which is youth. So that sense of, over time we go through experiences, we hear of experiences, and we gain more and more help. We can get more resources. I've got more ideas of what you can do in the middle of this crisis and how I can help you. And finally, training. So just because who you are may be more important than what you know, still it's important for us to keep learning. We need to keep developing, which is part of why I thought it would be good for us to talk through this on here, because it's important for you to be learning and thinking, okay, you're going to come across maybe some young people in crisis. You're probably definitely going to come across some young people in crisis. How can you help them? How can you be that listening person? How can you be that helper? Yes, I'm teaching you. I'm sure you worked that out long ago. So when we get chances of professional development stuff, we take them. And then servant spirit. So we come with that sense of, how do we do a servant spirit? Rich tells the story of, he took a group down to Haiti and they helped out with this orphanage. And they had to do all this stuff there, and then there was this toilet. The bathroom really stank, and I think one of the kids, and I can't see where it says, was like, "I'm happy we didn't have to clean the toilet." And he's sort of like, "Yeah, it's true. It's good, wasn't it?" And then he thought, actually, if I stopped you from doing something, because where would Jesus? He would have been in that toilet, cleaning that and working in there. So how do we give of ourselves? Making sure that we protect ourselves with boundaries. Just been doing code of ethics this morning, boundaries, so I should add that in. So that sense of when a young person hits a crisis, one person is important. They need that one person to support them. That one person that can have bring some humour to the situation, can have empathy, has availability, has emotional focus, is focused on them, not just present, but emotionally focused, is approachable, is resourceful, can help them to think through ideas outside, has maybe had some training, maybe hasn't, it doesn't matter, but is hopefully doing some training, and is a servant spirit. So there we go. We got through a whole chapter. We need to be making connections. We need to be building those things up so that young people go, yeah, he's a helper. He's that one person that can help me through this crisis. You never know what you might do and how that might affect you. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you on the weekend, or see you next week. We'll probably talk about Funny the Sunday next week. Well, that'd be surprising, wouldn't it? It'll be one day in. We'll see how it's going. Thanks for joining us. Bye, everyone.